Good afternoon, kings and queens, and welcome to Believe in Yourself Tuesday. I'm your host, Lakina Folks, and on today's show, we have with us Reverend Horace Sheffield III, one of Detroit's community leaders and builders who has built a legacy of civil rights dating back to his father, Horace Sheffield Jr. He is a published writer, senior pastor of Detroit's New Destiny Christian Fellowship, and he has a radio show called On the Line with Horace Sheffield on 910 AM Superstation. And believe me, this is not even scratching the surface of everything he has done and still a part of. I am honored to have him on the show today, and we're going to chat right after this. So, Pastor Horace Sheffield, thank you so much for being on the show today. Believe in yourself.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's a pleasure having you here on today. And so I want to ask you, so you have a motto. Your motto is, all the world is my homeland, and all of his people with their many tongues and many religions are my brethren. And the fight for full justice and freedom for all of them is my religion. And my indubitable strength in this flows
my unshakable belief that it's God's will.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is the inspiration behind this?
My dad. That was my dad's motto, who worked with Dr. King and Philip Randolph, a variety of different people. And so I just subscribed to what he believed, that I couldn't do any better than what he wrote. So
wow.
I love it. I mean, it's it's just a fascinating way to live a life when you're committed to others. We don't necessarily automatically get that because we're Christians. We know a lot of folks who love Jesus but can't stand anybody else.
Right.
But one of the quintessential aspects of Christian character is love of others and selfless service.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. So you got this model from your dad, and
yep.
He was quite in close.
Yeah, my dad was the first person to bring Dr. King to Detroit. He was actually a black trade unionist, worked for Philip Randolph, who had the 1943 March on Washington for jobs in the war industry. So, he was a national leader for many, many years, but he grew up in Tabernacle Baptist Church, and his basic belief in racial justice and fighting for working class people grew out of his Christian faith. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow, and you just went on with your father's.
Well, I'm named after him. I'm the third, so I didn't have much choice because my dad took me everywhere. I went to the meetings to organize the March on Washington, or knew all those folks and knew that God had placed me there to see these people and to absorb their spirit, that I might try to replicate their work.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So it's just in you. It was birthed in you.
It is in me. Yes, it is.
Wow.
In my mouth and in my tongue.
Amen. Yes. So you come from a legacy of fighting for civil rights. So that's your legacy. That's in your family. That's in your blood. That's in your DNA.
Yes.
How do you feel about all the racial unrest we've been dealing with now?
Yeah. Well, I'm old enough to remember, when my dad was in the South and we'd have to get up and pray because my mother would wake us up saying that, my dad was, being hunted and hounded by the Klan, and I remember all of the images of Jim Crow and the dogs being released and water hoses, and as much as a lot of that passed, and the hope with Obama being elected that we've come to a new era, we really see a significant sentiment of folks who almost are angry about the fact that we've made racial progress. So I kind of feel like the more things have changed, the more they've stayed the same.
Wow. So is it a little shocking to you really what's kind of going on now?
It is. I think the only hope that we have is that the younger generation of folks who've grown up in a multiracial society, many of whom supported Obama, that these older folks and some of these other, malcontents, I mean, they're angry at us when when they weren't responsible for themselves. We didn't take your jobs. We're not the persons who caused you to be poor. It's a bait and switch. The leaders tell them that it's all of the changes that have been made in America, and that's the reason why. So, I'm encouraged because I think at some point, people will wake up and realize that we have more in common than we have that is different. Yeah. And we all bleed. We all breathe. We all need to eat.
Yes.
And we have to do this in unison and in cooperation with one another.
Right. Right. So you talked a little bit about the young people. So do you think because the younger generation now may not have experienced those things like you did when you were young, going to the civil rights movement, going to Washington, having a father that was really close in that, how do you feel about the younger generation now? Do they somewhat not really appreciate it?
Well, I think that they've had a different form of racism to deal with. Police brutality.
Yes.
All the folks who have been slain by police officers. So you have a significant group of young people who have been awakened and are racially conscious and fighting. One of the things that I had to deal with too was the Vietnam War. I had a draft card. Every Sunday, you had to go get the Sunday Detroit News and see whether or not your number was in there. And I had already made my mind that my number was there. I was going to Canada because I wasn't going to Vietnam. Too many friends of mine I knew came back in body bags, or they weren't the same. But yeah, I think there's a even maybe higher level of activism among young people today, given police brutality and a whole host of other things. Even Make America Great. Some of the craziness of Trump have inspired a lot of folks to become more aware of the inequities of race and needing to address that forever. I don't think it'll ever go away. It's gender, it's homophobia, it's certain people who believe that they're privileged and all the other folks shouldn't be entitled to anything except what they deem they should have.
Right.
Yeah.
So how would a young person, if they're wanting to get in civil rights, what change or what could they do now?
Well, there's a lot of organizations around. NAACP is still active. You have the National Action Network, which Charles Williams runs here. I was one of the founding members. In fact, I had the first chapter of the National Action Network outside of New York.
Okay.
Dabo gets involved in that. We have a variety of different opportunities. Young people should, go to people and to organizations that are doing what they think they want to do. Charles Williams came to me as a freshman at Eastern Michigan University. I put him on my pastoral staff. I put him on the NAN staff. Now he's a national leader in the National Action Network and, looked to as a leader in this area. So you start where your interests lie. Okay. And you'll find some people, they're older people, don't have time for you. But you'll find somebody who will say, come on, let me show you the ropes. And that's how you get involved.
Okay. Okay. Now,
like you, for example.
Right.
You came to me, right? And
yeah.
I like to think there's a lot of young folks out there that in some way, I was really touched when you told me that. I went home and thought about it because it reminds me of Matthew 25. Yes. When Jesus, told some of them they were going into heaven, and he said, when did we? It was just part of their nature to feed the hungry and clothe the naked, and didn't do it to be seen or to be thanked, but because they thought it was the right thing to do. And when you told me that I had spoken something into you in passing, I was really, touched by that, because then my living, shall not be in vain.
Yes. So I'm going to tell the audience a little bit about that so they know. So many years ago, I was in a very bad place in my life. I was broke. I was on welfare, and in my early 20s in a very bad relationship. And it was my first time getting an assistant. Someone at my church said, hey, you got kids, go down there for some help. And I went, and they had started this Work First program. And I went there, and it was at your church. And you know, I didn't know. And in that situation, you can feel so bad about yourself. And I went there, and the lady there, she was so nice. And then Pastor Sheffield
Danielle Foster is her name.
Yes. And Pastor Sheffield came in, and he had spoke some words, and he said, this is not going to be your life. You are great, and you all will be something. And he was just speaking such words, and it made me feel so good, and I didn't feel bad about myself. And then years later, now, and I see Pastor Sheffield, and I'm like, wow, he spoke those words to my heart. So that's what he's talking about. And that was.
But you know, I'll share this with you. One of the fundamental messages that I have comes out of working with a young lady whose parents abused her. Biological father sexually abused her. And I helped her get emancipated. But she also went to the prosecutors, and he was charged. And she was in my school, and the father and mother came up the day she was supposed to testify with a whole posse of family. And they were going to beat her up and take her. And I went out and stood between her and the family. We had called the police, we had security. And by the time I looked up, all my school was behind me.
Wow.
And the father went to, engage in some violence, and I was prepared to retaliate because I was just that angry that a father would do such a thing and then, want to come in and harm her. And she grabbed me. She said, Pastor Sheffield, she says, don't get caught up in this. She said, I'm past it because I've learned how to dance in my darkness.
Wow.
And a lot of people don't catch that, but being a preacher in words. And she told me if you can't dance in your darkness, you never live to see the light of day. Wow. And so people will try to define you, discourage you, depress you, defeat you. But in the face of something that is contrary to what you want for yourself, what has been spoken over you, what you've envisioned or God has planted in you, you've got to dance in the darkness and defy the very thing that's opposite of what it is you're believing to receive.
Wow. Yes. That's just amazing.
This is not me. This is not where I'm supposed to be. I'm not stuck here. I'm passing through. Everything worked together for good.
Yes, it does.
The pit for Joseph became the path to the palace. But you can't have a pit perspective, right? Good. You got to have a palace perspective in the pit.
Yes. Wow, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I just speak to the type of godly man that you are, that you're helping people and impacting their lives.
I love to.
And willing to risk almost your own life standing in between a lady and her family. Yeah,
I've had a couple situations like that, but it's an interesting thing. God has not given us a spirit of fear, right? And when I look back in many of those instances, I wonder why did I do that? But when you love the brethren, when you love people, when you've been called to help people, you just do it. I mean, he said, speak. I'll be in your mouth.
Yeah.
And I really have that belief that God will provide whatever we need when we need it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
Yep.
So you're the senior pastor of Detroit's New Destiny Christian Fellowship, and you have a nonprofit called the Safe Center.
Well, it's actually the Detroit Association of Black Organizations. I had the Safe Center when I was on the east side. That's still a part of New Galilee Missionary Baptist Church, where I pastored for 15 years.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I pastored on the east side, and we built a new church from the ground up right across from the 9th Precinct. Spent 15 years there. I was always working for the Detroit Association of Black Organizations, which is an organization that my father founded in 1979. Wow. But I came over to the east side 12 years ago, west side, and founded New Destiny Christian Fellowship. And we're anchored on one corner of Grand River and Wyoming, Grand River in Kentucky, and we have the other building on Grand River in Wyoming. So we've had, and I say we, Dable, that is, has property in the area we're developing. We have all kinds of programs. We do food. We do testing. We just got a notice today that our clinic was renewed for 2 more years.
That's awesome.
We have a free clinic in our building, and we do all kinds of testing, particularly those things which ill impact, say, 16 to 30 years old. I don't know if you know, but Detroit has one of the highest rates of venereal disease in the country, particularly syphilis.
Really?
But we also, in the last 3 years, the numbers of youth 14 to 19 who are HIV positive have doubled. So we're doing a lot of testing, help people know their status, and a lot of prevention work in that regard. Now, people won't like me saying this, but the reality is that people love Jesus, but they still having sex. I mean, there are folks who are moral and ethical, but don't necessarily feel that premarital sex is something they shouldn't engage in. And by the way, research reveals that most Christians are less likely to protect themselves simply because they don't pre-plan the sex.
Right.
They think the thought of having the sex and planning to have the sex is sinful, but if it just happens, it's different.
Right.
But we're trying to teach people, as they do in Nassau, that they ought to, engage in prevention.
Right.
All of these unwanted pregnancies, people with multiple children unable to care for themselves. We need to give the best life.
Yes.
To our children.
Wow, that's amazing. That's awesome. You got the testing center there helping with prevention. That's really, really great. I don't think I've even heard of anything like that in Michigan.
By the way, one of the things I'm really proud of, and I know you're fashionable, we have a relationship with Hearts of Humanity that gets clothing, Kate Spade purses and polo shirts, and I'm trying to think of some of the shoes, Coach shoes and all of that. And we do that once a month. Beautiful new clothing for kids and adults, and we couple that with our Gleaners distribution. I'm a firm believer that there are a lot of people, and my wife doesn't like this term, but I love it, who are working poor.
Yeah.
They go to work every single day, but they have not enough to manage prescription drugs and child care and food.
Yeah.
And so when we provide food, we do, almost a month's worth of food that we give families. Enough
in one visit.
Plus the clothes.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yep.
Wow. So you're doing a lot for the city, the community. That's amazing. Do you think Detroit is headed in a direction that would empower Black people and push them up?
Yeah, we just went through this election and proposal. P was a hotly contended proposal. I was no on P. Anybody who's been here 25, 30 years knows that Detroit is better than it was. I mean, we have more investment. We have people moving back in. Real estate values are going sky high.
Yes, it is.
We're not unlike other cities. I was just in Chicago this weekend, where there was a lot of murders and homicides. I mean, every major city, almost rural areas in the country now, are going through a spike in crime. But we have gotten better. The issue we have in Detroit is, how do we include long-term generational residents in this rebirth? I mean, we've paid inordinate insurance rates. We've paid high price for everything. And so now that Detroit is turning around, and I've told this to the mayor, we need to find ways to reward and to help people who never left.
That's good.
Everything shouldn't be about drawing more people back or making it better for those who just got back. Because I remember a time when they said, last one leave, turn off the lights.
Right.
And now they're here, and, I'm glad they are. I'm not mad about that. We've got some African Americans in this town who deplore the fact that whites are moving back. I don't. I want Detroit to be the best city it can be with all kinds of folks. But I think that our resources and the money that we get from our taxes and from the federal government, some of that ought to be putting roofs on people's homes. Who've been here 40 years and paying taxes, in some instances, overtaxed.
Yes, and that's a great thing to do. You said giving a reward to the people that has been here for so long and stuck it out. You know, these people have been in their homes 20, 30, 40 years.
50 years. I have ladies that live around me with my building that come from my senior program, been in their homes 50 years, and they're still paying taxes on properties that now are going up in value. But we just had to help one of our major matriarchs of our neighborhood put on the roof on her house. She couldn't afford it. But I'm saying, why is the money that used to be there to replace roofs gone? We can help build stadiums.
Yes,
We ought to be able to help people stay in their homes because in 10 years from now, I mean, many people who live here won't be able to afford to live here if we don't make things more affordable for them.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. And that's a great thing,
Yep.
giving them a reward.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Reverend Horace Sheffield, you have a TV show as well,
Yep.
or a talk show on 910 Superstation. How long have you
I
been
have
in that
both.
show?
I have a TV show on WADL.
Okay. You
Comes
have
on
that?
Sundays at 12:30. That's called Real Talk.
Okay.
And then my radio show is On the Line, which comes on every Saturday from 8 to 10.
Okay. So, what do you talk about? And
I talk about people like you.
okay.
People doing things. I've been on the radio for 30 years.
Okay.
And I was on WGPR. I've been on a few different stations. I've been on WCHB. And, I used to do really controversial stuff. But over the years, my whole perspective has changed. I don't want to talk about people. I don't want to run folks down. I mean, except by the grace of God, there go I. So I like to provide information to people about things that are available. We have a great partner, for example, here on Clinton Metro Parks.
Okay.
Amy McMillan took over. She came from Flint. For the first time in years, that park is poised to invite more people of color, to employ more people of color, doing things in Detroit and Rouge Park. I mean, 10 years ago, the only thing you knew about Metro Park was, going out there.
Yeah.
And so we have them on a regular basis, and DTE and places like that to provide assistance for folks. But we also talk about businesses, black businesses, and people who are doing things. So I'm really excited about my show. I'm thinking about this being my last year. I'm kind of transitioning. I want to get out of the marketplace so my daughter can have more room to operate.
Okay.
We don't always seem to be on the same side of the issue.
Okay.
And I don't want her to be impacted by me being on a different side of the street. And
now, is she the one taking on your legacy?
well, my daughter is president pro tem of the city council. Okay. She got elected at 25, the youngest in the history of the city.
Wow, that's amazing.
I think she has aspirations to be mayor. I think she could be mayor.
Yeah.
And I don't want people not to vote for her because they're mad at me. Because I don't care. I'm not running for office. So what you think about me, if I was running for office, wouldn't bother me. So yeah.
Okay. Do you have any other children that's taking?
Yeah, I have 4 children altogether. My son, I have 1 boy, Horace Sheffield IV. He's the oldest.
Okay.
And then I have my daughter Mary. Then I have Tiara. Who has given me my only grandchild, Lauren McKenzie Scruggs, who is a bona fide genius. She's 6 years old. She reads at a 5th grade level.
Wow.
We just got back from Chicago, and I'm always having conversation with her about words and things, and she can enunciate them, and then she'll ask me, Granddaddy, what does it mean? And I'll explain. She's got it. She grasps it. And then my youngest daughter, Shay, who's a pre-med student at Wayne State University.
Amazing, amazing. Well, Mr. Reverend Bishop Horace Sheffield, it has been a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Having you on the show
Absolutely.
today.
A little bit of you have worn off on me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell the audience how they can connect with you via
Sure.
social media,
Sure.
your websites, and then leave them with some hope about believing in themselves.
Sure. Well, you can reach me always at the corner of Grand River, Wyoming. My office number is 313-491-0003, 313-491-0003. I have my own website, www.horracesheffield.com, horracesheffield.com, or at Dabo, www.dabledetroitinc.com. Now, I'll leave you with a story that I read about when I was in the 4th grade about Marion Anderson. She was as you know, a prolific opera singer, was denied an opportunity to sing in Carnegie Hall. And, of course, Eleanor Roosevelt set up a concert for her to sing on the stairs of Carnegie Hall. So if you're not going to let me in, I'm going to sing on the stairs. But she said when she was a little girl, she went to the state fair with her father. And she saw a little white boy who had a white balloon. And the little white boy let the balloon go, and it soared higher and higher and higher till it disappeared. So she told her dad that she wanted a white balloon like the white boy, and went to the balloon guy. He had nothing but black balloons left. She said, no, I want a white balloon like the little white boy. So when I let mine go, it was soar as high as his. And the balloon guy filled the black balloon with some helium and gave it to us. And said, sweetheart, it wasn't the color of the balloon that made it rise. It was what was on the inside.
Wow. Wow. What was on the inside? Thank you again. It was a pleasure having you on today.
Thank you.
And thank you, kings and queens, for tuning in on the show today. And like Pastor Sheffield said, it's what's on the inside. It's what's on the inside that matters. And belief starts within us. You can do anything you put your mind to do if you just believe. Belief is accepting something as true, and you believe it to be true. So if you know that you are royal, that you're a queen, that you're a king, that you're a business owner, whatever it is that you aspire to do, you can do it because why? You believe in yourself. So remember, everything you need is right there inside of you. All you have to do is believe in yourself.
1, 2, 3, 4. Believe in yourself. You can't speak.